Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take these huge, complex stories and try to turn them into the clearest and hopefully most surprising insights.
Mhm.
Today, we are opening a very specific door. It's the front door of a perfectly manicured home in a 1950s American suburb.
Right.
But what's behind that door isn't the quiet serenity that the era promised. It's,
Mhm.
it's a crisis of reality, an internal struggle so profound it was just labeled as madness.
But it wasn't, and that's the key. Its origins were purely physical.
Exactly.
It's a huge historical reckoning we're getting into today. We're using the story of a housewife named Lulu. Now, she's fictional, but her struggle is so representative.
And she's living in this place, Greenwood Estates.
Yeah, and it's our lens, really. Our lens into the institutional dismissal of women's pain. We're looking at how these intense social expectations created the perfect storm, you know?
A storm where a complex physical illness like lupus could just be completely misdiagnosed as, well, psychological distress.
Mhm.
So that's really our mission today, isn't it? To do this deep dive, to kind of take a shortcut into understanding this immense, suffocating pressure of mid-century life.
And crucially, the actual physical toll it took. What happens when a real illness is met not with curiosity, but with tranquilizers?
And just dismissal.
Yeah.
So by the end of this, you'll be able to see not just Lulu's story, but the stories of countless women whose suffering was really sanctioned and silenced by the culture they lived in.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We've got Lulu in her environment, this place, Greenwood Estates.
Yeah, and the key thing to understand about it is that replication is everything. It's mandatory. Every home is just a flipped version of the last one.
They practice this visual synchronicity.
Exactly, which means this place demands a performance. And Lulu knows, deep down, that she has to put on a mask.
That mask it's really the first layer we have to peel back, isn't it?
It is, and it takes us right to the heart of the pressure. There's a quote from Sylvia Plath's journals that just nails it perfectly.
What was that?
She wrote, "Masks are the order of the day, and the least I can do is cultivate the illusion that I am gay, serene, not hollow and afraid."
Wow.
And that is exactly what Lulu is doing. She's cultivating an illusion of perfect domestic life because not doing so, it's a public failure. It's unforgivable.
And the neighborhood itself, Twickenham Court, it's designed for that kind of scrutiny, that judgment.
Oh, absolutely. The source material calls it an environment of constant, subtle surveillance. Think about it.
The big picture windows with no drapes.
The perfectly low hedges that offer zero privacy.
The front-facing garages.
Yeah. Everything faces outward. Every car, every patch of grass that's a little too long, every kid making too much noise. It's all visible. It's all up for judgment by everyone.
And nothing dictated that performance, that show of control, more than the domestic schedule.
The schedule. Lulu's friend Nora gives her the operational blueprint for the era, the good housekeeping cleaning schedule.
And we're not talking about suggestions here. This was rigid.
You know, it was basically ideology and a checklist. We have to break it down because it was the metronome of their lives.
Okay, so what was it?
Mondays were for groceries in the kitchen, Tuesdays laundry, Wednesdays bedrooms and bathrooms. And this, as the source says, was embedded in their programming.
Wow.
It set a pace that was absolutely like the beat of a metronome. It's a kind of intellectual anesthesia, really.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it eliminates the space for you to think. You can't stop and ask yourself, am I happy, when you're already behind on Wednesday's bedroom checklist?
That's a really good point. And it reduces any emotional distress to just a logistical failure. There's that moment where Nora finds Lulu just sobbing.
Yes.
Not because her life is crushing her, but because she can't find a single missing sock.
And that missing sock is everything. It's the physical proof that her system is failing. If she can't even manage the socks, then the whole illusion, the whole mask is about to crumble.
And the judgment for that is instant.
It's instant. Any deviation from those standards is proof of, ineptitude or indolence. That's Lulu's own fear, because she knows that's what Nora and everyone else is thinking.
And the tragic part is that this whole domestic life was the complete opposite of who Lulu actually was.
Totally. She was a farm girl. Her desires were physical, robust, running the farm, tilling soil, being outside.
She desperately wanted to avoid that trapped indoors life that her own mother had.
And that's the core psychological conflict here, isn't it? She chose Henry, and in doing so, she accepted this suburban straitjacket.
All her happy memories are outside, the smell of the earth, the sound of water.
And now her life is measured by a cleaning schedule and the glow of a Frigidaire and the constant threat of what the neighbors think. She's this big outdoor personality being forced into a tiny, controlled indoor space.
And that confinement it's the kindling.
It's the kindling. When the illness strikes, it just finds all the cracks that this system has already created.
So let's pivot a little to how she tries to find some agency in this system and how Henry, her husband, who is, fundamentally well-intentioned.
But profoundly unaware.
Exactly. How he contributes to her being trapped, even when he thinks he's helping.
Well, Henry's entire value system is rooted in that post-war dream, providing security, material progress.
His love language is practicality.
100%. He chose the 4-bedroom house for the growing family. He upgraded the appliances without asking because he thought it would make her life easier.
The auto defrost feature on the Frigidaire, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the peak of 1950s thinking right there. A symbol of his success and her leisure.
And he even regretted not getting a dishwasher. He sees her life purely through the lens of domestic labor that technology can fix.
Meanwhile, Lulu's rebellion is completely silent. It's all about aesthetics, about emotional ownership of the house.
Yeah, she has this multi-year plan to get rid of all of her mother-in-law Marion's stuff.
Who helped with the down payment and so felt she had the right to furnish their whole life.
Right. Lulu calls them haughty pieces, and she's fighting this secret war for the soul of the house, one covert shift of wall decor at a time. She's trying to put some soul into our house.
And the stamp catalog is her weapon. It's her budget for emotional survival.
It is. It's her primary currency of escape. And we have to look at the one thing she wants more than anything, but keeps putting off: the Kodak Duoflex camera.
The camera, which is this huge symbol for her.
It's maybe the most profound symbol in her whole world. It represents her ability to capture and validate her own reality, and not the one everyone else imposes on her.
But the specific model is so important. The Kodak Duoflex. It has a fixed focus lens.
The irony is just, it's devastating. She's desperately seeking clarity, a way to document her life, but the very tool she desires is designed for a limited, unchanging focus.
Which is exactly what her suburban world is forcing on her.
And she never gets it. She plans for months, saves up the stamp books, but something practical always gets in the way.
Henry's chrome grill, that was 7.5 books.
An item for male social approval. Then the electric hair clippers for their son, Wesley. Another 3¼ books. A new percolator.
Her own artistic vision, her self-expression, it's always traded for domestic necessity or Henry's social standing.
It's a clear hierarchy of needs, and hers are always at the bottom.
And Henry just completely misses it, which is perfectly captured in that story about the Christmas slippers.
Oh, the slippers. He saw her feet were cold, a physical problem. So he applied a material fix. A good 1950s husband solves the visible problem.
But what does she do? She shoves them under the bed.
And prefers to feel the stiff, rough carpet on her feet because she can pretend it's the earth, the grass that she misses so much.
He sees cold feet. She sees, I'm trapped indoors.
And his solution just traps her further inside in soft, warm comfort when she's craving a connection to the outside world.
The communication breakdown is just total. It's structural.
It is. Henry thinks providing comfort in things is the definition of being a good husband. Lulu is slowly suffocating under the weight of all that security. She doesn't need more things.
She needs to be seen.
Exactly. She's not just unhappy, she is unseen. And when an illness starts to creep in, being unseen becomes incredibly dangerous.
So before the illness really takes over, she
Yeah.
creates this psychological sanctuary for herself.
The house of imagination.
Right. She focuses on the empty, identical house across the street and just furnishes it in her mind.
And the furniture is so specific. It's modern, a little rebellious, an olive green crescent sofa, a walnut coffee table.
It's her real home, the one place where she has total control over the emotional atmosphere, unlike her own house, which is still full of her mother-in-law's taste.
And she actually hopes the house stays empty so it can just belong to her imagination forever.
But that hope is shattered when the Bessers move in. Gary and Bitsy Betzer.
And they immediately become this weird, uncomfortable reflection of all of Lulu's own fears.
Bitsy is described in this really unsettling way. The tight, unflinching bun, the wobbly legs.
And that unflinching grin, it's like she's trying way too hard to hold herself together.
And their house is the opposite of the perfection Lulu is trying to maintain. It's just visual chaos, a putrid pattern on the sofa.
Green, brown, blue, yellow, orange, red, all clashing.
And there's that family portrait in their hallway. It's a key piece of foreshadowing.
It is. Gary and the boys, they look normal, but Bitsy's eyes are dark. Her lips are flat, And there's this one lock of hair flipping outward as if a flag that no one noticed.
A little flag of rebellion.
Exactly. Lulu sees it instantly. She recognizes that subtle sign of a struggle underneath the surface, just like her own secret war against Marion's furniture.
And this is so important because Lulu's own illness is starting to set in.
So she starts to blur the lines between her own distress and what she thinks is her neighbor's madness.
Which leads directly to the delusion about the Betzers later on. But before we get to the delusion, we see this buildup of really profound physical symptoms.
Yeah, and at first they're just dismissed as, normal postpartum life, the exhaustion, the physical pain of nursing.
The feeling that time was what Wesley needed, and I gave it to him.
And this is where the illness, lupus, begins its stealthy attack. The first symptoms are so easy for the medical establishment of the time to just rationalize away.
Like the red lacy rash on her arm, Henry just says it's sun poisoning.
Right. She has constant headaches, extreme fatigue that she just can't shake. These are all classic early signs of lupus. But for a young mother in the 1950s...
I guess a tired wife.
That's it. It gets filed under tired wife.
But then things get truly terrifying. The neurological symptoms start. This is the first real sign of central nervous system lupus.
She begins tasting sounds and smelling colors.
This is synesthesia, right?
It is, but in this context, it's a pathology. It's not some interesting curiosity. The lupus is causing inflammation in her brain, and it's making her sensory pathways cross.
So sound is triggering her sense of taste. Color is triggering her sense of smell.
And imagine how isolating and terrifying that is. The gentle purr from her cat, Luna, suddenly tastes sharp and chemical, like pine sol. The normal ticking of a clock tastes sweet, like boysenberries. A distant owl's hoot has a sharp, metallic sting.
Her entire reality is being corrupted. The most basic comforting inputs of her life are now confusing, invasive, and scary.
And this is exactly why she stays quiet. The doctor asks about headaches and being tired. Okay, every woman in Greenwood Estates is tired. Every woman has headaches. She can talk about that.
But she can't say, the owl's hoot tastes like metal and it's making me dizzy.
No way. The second she says that, she moves from the tired housewife category straight into the hysterical lunatic box. The risk of being misunderstood is just too high.
So she censors herself. She holds back the most critical evidence of her physical illness.
And that silence is what allows the disease to progress into a full-blown delusion.
That crisis point finally comes at a work party. Lulu collapses.
The pressure is just immense. Henry is distracted by his new assistant, Alice, and then this guy, Jack Ellis, feels her up on the dance floor.
And she has to just stand there and take it because Henry's promotion is on the line.
Her body literally just shuts down. It's a total physical and psychological overload. And when she finally goes to the doctor after this,
the medical system is waiting with its pre-written diagnosis.
It's swift and it's brutally dismissive. She's told she has hysteria and housewife syndrome.
And this is the historical heart of the problem, isn't it? The medical establishment had this whole menu of psychological excuses for women's pain.
Oh, absolutely. It was a whole spectrum. Housewife's blight was the term for rashes, like the one Lulu had. Housewife's fatigue for tiredness.
So any complex chronic condition was just immediately filed away as a psychological issue.
The underlying belief was, look, you've been given this great gift of a modern home and an easy life. If you're unhappy in your perfect suburban cage, the fault is with you.
Not the cage.
And certainly not some serious systemic physical disease we don't understand yet.
And the prescription for this Centra.
Tranquilizers. Specifically, Milltown. And it was marketed with the explicit purpose of blotting out the strange, dissatisfied voice.
So as a chemical tool to enforce conformity.
It was. Meprobamate. It was incredibly popular. It didn't just calm your nerves. Its genius was that it dulled your ability for complex thought, for existential questioning.
So it didn't solve the problem. It just made you stop caring about the problem.
Precisely. Lulu says that it made it harder to hear the real joy in her son's laughter. It created this floating, distant sense of self. She's just watching her life from a distance.
So the Milltown actually makes things worse. It disconnects her even more, and that fuels the delusion.
It does. And her delusion starts to take shape, pulling in neighborhood gossip. Nora tells her this chilling story about a despondent wife named Ellen.
The one who sealed off her kitchen with plastic wrap and gas.
Yeah. And this becomes the framework for Lulu's delusion. Her sick mind, fueled by the neurological lupus, needs a story. She finds a newspaper article that connects Ellen to Bitsy Betzer, their sisters. And her brain makes the terrifying leap. Bitsy must have been lobotomized by her husband Gary to make her happy and compliant. The Betzers are no longer just her neighbors.
They're a vision of her own future.
A horrifying one. And while she's spiraling, what is Henry doing? He's attempting his ultimate material fix.
The mobile maid?
The mobile maid, a king-sized, fully automatic, but completely uninstalled dishwasher.
So it just sits in the middle of the kitchen, blocking everything.
It's an island of pure obstruction. He thinks he's relieving her burden, but he's just physically blocking her path. It's the perfect, tragic symbol of his whole approach.
And then reality completely shatters. Henry finds her in the nursery,
Holding the blanket.
holding an empty blanket,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to tell her the devastating truth. Their second child, Esther, died, a stillbirth. And Lulu has been living in a complete delusion for weeks, believing she's caring for a real baby.
This is the absolute peak of the illness and the grief. Her mind, ravaged by inflammation and this unspeakable loss, just created a world where Esther lived.
And when Henry tells her the truth, she panics. She sends Wesley to get her camera.
The one piece of potential evidence.
And in his rush, he drops it. He exposes the film and shatters that fixed focus lens.
The one tool she hoped would finally capture and fix her reality is destroyed, trying to prove a reality that never even existed.
In that moment, for her, her madness feels complete and irreversible. Lulu's breakdown. It's really the gateway for us in this much darker history, the systemic danger of what they call diagnosis by exclusion.
That's a great way to put it. And you mentioned that chilling phrase from the sources that in the 1950s, women's pain did not sediment in a test tube.
Right.
And that's the whole intellectual arrogance of the era in one sentence. It means if we, the male-dominated medical establishment, can't see it or measure it with our tools, then it's not real. It's just emotional noise.
It must be psychological.
It has to be. And that denial of anything that couldn't be quantified just paved the way for decades of neglect.
Let's talk about that catch-all term they used, hysteria. It's so old, and the fact that they were still using it in the 1950s says a lot.
It really does. Hysteria is one of the oldest and most stubborn diagnoses in all of Western medicine. The ancient Egyptians and Greeks literally thought it was caused by a wandering womb.
The uterus was just wandering around the body.
That was the theory. The Greek word for uterus is hystera. They believed it moved around, causing anxiety, fainting, paralysis, basically anything they couldn't explain.
And what was the cure for a wandering womb?
You'd try to lure it back into place with pleasant or unpleasant smells. I'm not kidding.
Wow. Yeah.
So you fast forward thousands of years. By the 19th century, Freud and others start to see it as a psychological issue, a conversion disorder from trauma.
But the result is the same, isn't it?
The result is exactly the same. Whether it's a physical wandering wound or a psychological trauma, hysteria always functioned as a diagnosis of exclusion. It was a bucket to throw everything into that they didn't understand.
Things we now know as lupus, multiple sclerosis, endometriosis.
All of it. So when Lulu gets that diagnosis in 1955, it's not some new medical insight. It's a centuries-old tradition of just institutionalizing female discomfort.
It was a failure of diagnostics, really, masquerading as psychological wisdom.
And when the talking cures and the tranquilizers like Milltown didn't work, the medical field turned to some truly terrifying treatments, things that were really just medically sanctioned silencing.
We have to talk about the lobotomy.
We do. It is the darkest chapter in this history. The procedure severs the connection to the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles personality and complex thought.
And this was happening mostly in the 40s and 50s.
Yes, and the numbers are just staggering. Between 40 and 50,000 people were lobotomized in the U.S. alone. But here's the critical part. The majority of them were women.
Why women?
Because the reasons for doing it were so broad and so tied to gender roles. It wasn't just for severe psychosis. It was for things like emotional tension, anxiety, and very telling psychosomatic disorders.
So if a woman was too emotional or too defiant of her domestic role,
a lobotomy was considered a valid therapeutic option to make her more docile, more compliant, quieter.
it wasn't about curing her. It was about ensuring social compliance.
Absolutely. And Dr. Walter Freeman, with his transorbital procedure, made it horrifyingly fast and accessible.
This is the infamous ice pick lobotomy.
That's the one. He developed a procedure where he'd go in through the thin bone of the eye socket. He even had a customized van he called the lobotomobile and took his operation on the road.
He called it Operation Ice Pick.
He did. Sometimes using an actual ice pick, he'd hammer it into the brain and just sweep it back and forth.
How fast could he do this?
Terrifyingly fast. There's a record of him performing 228 of these in just 2 weeks. The procedure could take as little as 10 minutes. It was a brutal, efficient way to silence anyone deemed too difficult.
Thankfully, Lulu avoids that fate. But she is subjected to electroconvulsive therapy, ECT.
Right. Henry takes her to a sanatorium, and it happens to be the same one where her brother Georgie was treated for polio, which just adds another layer of trauma to the whole thing.
And she agrees to one session, thinking it'll be a quick fix.
But the doctor, Dr. Rutledge, insists on more. He uses that terrifyingly manipulative line, "We all want to do what's in your best interest."
She gets strapped down. A rubber bit is forced into her mouth.
And that rubber bit is so symbolic. It's supposedly to keep her from biting her tongue, from hurting herself. But it's also the final act of physical control over a body that won't conform.
She's just reduced to a body on a table.
Singing her son's favorite song, Over the Rainbow, as she waits for the electricity to jolt her brain and, hopefully from their perspective, correct her attitude.
That moment is just her deepest maternal instinct, the song for her son, coming out just as she's about to be medically assaulted. It's profound. But she finds a way out. She escapes the sanatorium and makes it back to her childhood farm. And this escape is the absolute turning point.
It is. This is the moment the psychological nightmare gives way to a painful but solid truth.
She gets to the house, and for the first time, she receives this genuine affection from her mother.
She sees her mother running towards her, a display of raw concern she's never seen before. Her mother calls her Lucy, her childhood name, and it's like it calls her back to herself.
And crucially, her mother, unlike all the doctors, she instantly recognizes the physical signs.
Immediately. She sees the chronic aches, the fatigue, and the definitive marker they all missed. The butterfly rash across Lulu's face.
The mylar rash, a classic sign of lupus.
A hallmark. And her mother, having seen this all before, delivers the truth. She says, it's not madness, it's lupus. Just like him. Just like her father.
So the vague sickness that took her father was lupus all along.
And her mother, who watched him go through it, could decode the symptoms in her daughter that all the modern doctors just couldn't see past their psychosomatic theories.
And that diagnosis, lupus, it just validates everything Lulu went through.
Everything. The joint pain, the rash, the brain fog, the insomnia, and especially the CNS lupus, which explains the synesthesia, the tasting sounds, and the entire fully formed delusion about baby Esther. Her mind wasn't broken.
It was inflamed. It was malfunctioning because of a physical autoimmune attack.
And the source material makes it clear. Lupus dramatically increases the risk of pregnancy complications, stillbirths, miscarriages.
So Esther was real, but only in utero. The delusion was her sick mind's way of trying to process a loss that was physically real but completely misunderstood.
It also reframes her mother's behavior all those years, her coldness, her practicality. It wasn't a lack of love, it was fear. It was the pragmatism of someone who had already dealt with chronic, life-threatening illness and grief.
So, with the medical truth out, the personal reckoning can finally start. Henry tells her the truth about the sanatorium.
Yeah, the villain of her delusion, Gary Betzer, had nothing to do with it. It was Henry's mother, Marion, who recommended Dr. Rutledge.
And Henry just went along with it, thinking his mother knew best, that she was finding the best care for his moody wife.
It just reinforces the control Marion always had over them. And the Betzers, they weren't villains at all. Gary just lied about the lobotomy, probably to keep up appearances. They're moving away because their own suburban dream fell apart.
The shadow she cast on them was a fiction created by her illness.
It was.
And then comes the emotional climax. Henry reveals that one photo was saved. From the shattered camera, the exposed film, one single image survived.
A grainy portrait of Lulu pregnant.
And that one picture, it changes everything.
It's monumental. It's physical proof that her memory was real, her trauma was real. The focus shifts from Lulu is mad to Lulu is grieving an unimaginable loss that was medically invisible to everyone.
And the grief should have been mutual all along.
But Henry had retreated into fixing things, and Lulu had retreated into delusion.
And she finally pushes him. She asks him what he wants, and he admits it. I am afraid.
And she gives him her truth. I want her. And in that moment, the silence between them finally breaks. They hold each other and they finally mourn Esther together.
His whole body shakes. He had been so trapped by that need to be the strong provider, he never let himself grieve.
He couldn't. Her honesty finally forces him to face the fact that he lost his daughter, too. And they realize the only way through it is together.
And sitting there, wrapped in an Afghan, she makes this profound choice. She asks Henry to take her home.
She chooses to go back. to embrace her life in Greenwood Estates, but this time with the full knowledge of what it contains.
The light, the dark, and as the source says, the shadows that creep between.
This isn't a return to the mask. It's a commitment to a messy reality. A reality that now includes her chronic illness, the memory of her loss, the absurd dishwasher in the kitchen, but also her love for her family.
It's acceptance, not conformity.
Right.
And that final loop with the camera is so powerful, she buys herself a new one.
From the store, not from the stamp catalog. It's an act of agency.
And her first picture isn't of Wesley, her living son. It's of Esther's empty blanket, draped over the rocking chair.
She photographs the absence. She makes the invisible loss visible and real. For herself, for Henry, for her own history, she's acknowledging that forgetting isn't a mercy anymore. It's a disservice to the truth. She finally takes control of her own narrative.
So Lulu's journey, even though it's fictional, it's just this terrifyingly accurate stand-in for the real experiences of so many women.
So many. Women whose voices were just ignored for decades, leading to suffering, institutionalization, just medical mismanagement on a huge scale.
And her story shows perfectly how Henry's good intentions, his attempts to provide material comfort, the mobile maid, the slippers, were just a completely insufficient response to what she was actually going through.
Well, the system they were in was built to protect the male narrative of success and security, and it did that by systematically silencing the female experience of pain.
The pain that wouldn't sediment in a test tube.
Exactly. She was fighting this invisible enemy inside her own body, an autoimmune disease attacking her mind, and the entire world was telling her the problem was just her attitude, her lack of domestic zeal.
She spent so much of her illness in what the sources call dormivalia, that space between sleeping and waking.
Yeah, that veiled, blurry space where her thoughts and her synesthesia felt the most real.
And in a strange way, her illness allowed her to see things, to decode things that others couldn't. Smelling pine sol in a cat's purr, tasting boysenberries in a clock's tick.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to think about. Lulu was forced to become an expert in hidden realities, in silent sufferings. And we, too, we often only hear what we're conditioned to hear. You know, when we listen to a bird, we hear the pleasant song, the melody on the surface. But we have no idea what the words are.
We don't know what it's actually communicating. It's struggle, it's reality.
Right. So what are the words of the unseen struggles happening all around you? In your own life or in the lives of the people you love?
What are we dismissing as just fatigue or moodiness that might be a much deeper truth? Just waiting for someone to finally decode it and to finally hear it. The silence is often louder than the sound.